business is the flag salute, so if everybody would join us in the flag salute, please. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'd like to welcome everyone to our meeting this evening. This is the November 9th, 2016 regular board meeting of the Pullman School District. We have a reasonably light agenda this evening, so we'll proceed. Are there any changes to our agenda that anyone has?
I do not believe there's any changes, but I do want to note there were a few last-minute additions to that, and you should have received an email regarding policies. But
Yep.
They're noted in here, but I just wanted to bring that to your attention. It's been a busy week, and we're scrambling at the end to make sure we included everything that needed to be included in our agenda today.
I will move that we approve the agenda as presented this evening.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda as presented. Any further comments, questions, or discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor of approving the agenda as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carried. Thank you. So that's our agenda for this evening. That moves us to the next portion of our agenda, which is for visitors. And this portion of the agenda is for anyone wishing to speak before the board, either as an individual or a group. Visitors addressing the board will go to the microphone and please state your name and address prior to presenting your information. Visitors are asked to limit their remarks to 3 minutes. The board will listen but not discuss that topic at this time, and the board may consider moving the topic presented to a future meeting date. So is there anyone that would like to address the board this evening on a subject that's not on our agenda? I don't see anybody rushing to the podium, so we'll conclude the visitor section and go on to reports, correspondence, and programs. Do we have a ASB report this evening? Okay.
Good evening, everyone. So the ASB recently had a food drive at PHS here, and we collected 2,700 pounds of food. In fact, that was so much that one food bank couldn't take it all, and we had to give it to another one.
Oh my gosh.
On Monday, we also had our Veterans Day Assembly to honor Veterans Day, which is this Friday, and it was quite successful. We had several of our community veterans come in, and Ms. Gould also talked about her time in the military. We also want to increase the positive attitude here at PHS, and we were thinking of doing that by hosting an activity where we could collect white t-shirts and have an after-school activity where students could decorate them and write positive comments on them, such as "you're cool" or "have a nice day." And we were thinking of hanging them up around the school to hopefully encourage people to think more positively. Also on the lines where holidays are coming up, we were thinking of having a movie night. Last school year, we had a movie night where we played Ferris Bueller in the auditorium, and it was a huge success. So we were thinking of having another one as Christmas approaches or as a holiday approaches, and we were thinking of watching Elf. And if that's successful, we might as well play more movies as well. The juniors also wanted to make cookies for the Pullman High School teachers here as appreciation gifts for Christmas as the holidays come in, and so we will be looking forward to that.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's always good to hear what's happening around the school. Thank you very much for that report.
Thank you. Nice job.
Let's move on to our board reports. I'll start down to my far left. Director Susan Weed.
Well, amongst all the other activities that the young lady was talking about, there's also Dracula going on at Pullman High School. It's a musical. And that's pretty much it. It's tomorrow night. And then it wouldn't be. And then Saturday too.
Saturday too, yeah. Two shows on Saturday, and I believe it's on our website.
I think that's, and of course, there's a very exciting football game scheduled here at the high school for Saturday afternoon at 2. That will be broadcast on Hits
report, Susan. Dr. Johansson, would
I
you?
just want to report again about football, looking at it from a different standpoint, in that I signed all the officials that worked there today, and my evaluation was that they did an excellent job. Everyone there was pre-rated as postseason in the process that we've been going through statewide. So, and it was, there were 5 really, really key calls. Some went toward Pullman's way and some went the other way, but I think my gradation is that they did well. But along with that, I was sitting with Doug's broadcasters, and fabulous job that they do now. It's posted and streamed live, I think. It's being streamed live on YouTube. And maybe the ideal thing would be to turn down the sound on YouTube and turn up the radio. There were, and they do instant replay, and it's in comparison to my little handheld little Sony camera that I use for my evaluation purposes. It's must be high definition or close to it, but it's the lights are, of course, in Martin Stadium, the lights were great, and so on. I did get a chance to personally thank both athletic director at WSU, Bill Moose, and Sean Deeds, the event manager. I understand that we got a really quite a good rate for the rental and all of the facilities that we had access to, plus practice on the previous night there under the lights and so on. And Chris Franklin, our athletic director here, activities director here, pardon me, reported that there are really improved or increased relationships with WSU, and we look forward to maybe some other facility sharing times and so on. I know it's been important to be able to get at the turf soccer field at times in the spring and the fall, at least for practice and so on. So anyway, that was nice to hear about what support that the university gave to us being there. And as I understand it, it wasn't really in any way contingent on that Ben plays, the WSU athletic director's son plays on the team, that it's represented a real commitment to WSU to supporting the high schools. That's all of my report.
Okay, thank you, Carl, for that report. Dr. Everman.
No report this evening.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Musher-Cole.
I do have a report. On October 28th, the Public Arts Selection Committee met for preliminary concept for the big piece of public art that's going in. So I want to pass this down so you can all look on it, but page 10 is sort of a depiction of, the colors are approximate, but it's resin balls that kind of have a glass-like appearance to them. Light can shine through them, kind of giving a stained glass and prismatic effect. But she is fantastic, has done so much great research, and Joe was here to, from a facility standpoint, look at, okay, what is the space and are we structurally okay, and how does the smoke detector beam interface with this, and all the technical aspects of it. So that was really well done. And then I just happened to run into today while walking on campus Denise Snyder, who's the director of the Pullman Community Band, and she had not been informed of our decision to dedicate the theater. So I just wanted to mention that we need to remember that step too when we have members of the public
And that
you
was
know.
on our list, so, yeah.
Yeah, so, but I did mention it, and she was, of course, delighted, and she immediately volunteered that the community band would love to play in an actual dedication, and she also volunteered Andy Milkey and the band here at the high school to also play in the dedication, which I think is a fine idea. So we probably should plan an actual dedication, and I said we would be letting her know.
That'll be right after the burning of the T-shirt.
That's it.
Okay, thank you for that report, and I have no report this evening, so we will move right on into the superintendent's report. Dr. Maxwell?
Thank you. So, several things just to bring to your notice. I mentioned, I think a couple weeks ago, we received an Outstanding Community Partnership Award. Well, our plaque has come in, so I'll pass that down so you can take a look at that. We have an ongoing partnership with the YMCA, and it was nice for them to bestow that honor on us. So, I also want to give Shannon a huge thanks, because she had to put up with me attending the football game last night, and since I don't know how to tweet, I kept sending Shannon pictures and comments all night long during the game, and she had to retweet those. So my next goal is to learn how to tweet.
Thank you, Shannon, because I checked out all those tweets, so I appreciate your hard work.
So I at least know how to attach pictures now. So, so Shannon was retweeting it for me. So I just want to appreciate her, because I probably interrupted her entire evening for at least 3 hours. So, but. Also, just a reminder, I'll just say it again, the first round of WAA football playoff game with Cedro Woolley will be at Pullman High School this Saturday. Start time 2 o'clock here at Pullman High School, 2 o'clock. So it gives you enough time to watch PHS win and then go to the WSU game later that evening. So
Yeah.
if you're into football, there's 2 outstanding games. Along with that, the Pac-12 donation of $10,000, we received that check earlier this week. And Garen Shannon, our IT director, informed me that we were able to purchase 42 Chromebooks for our elementary schools, so that equates to 14 per building. So almost a cart per building. So can't wait to get those in, and that's quite a nice little boost to our goal towards increasing the amount of technology in our schools. So those will be coming soon and will be distributed to each of the elementaries. Along with that, we have seen quite an increase in partnerships with WSU, from College of Ed to athletics. We're involved in several different initiatives. And I will also, just to let you know, I did send personal thank you cards to both the president and Bill Moose, thanking them for allowing us to use Martin Stadium last night. And it was a great crowd, by the way, also that attended. So that was very nice. And along with that, our Focus on Education tour for our invited guests will start tomorrow on LMS, and we pared that down to 3 schools, and we're very excited. We have at least 15 confirmed that will be touring with us tomorrow. So,
And that starts at 8:30?
starts at Lincoln, correct, at 8:30.
Okay.
And that's my report. I can go into construction update next. if
Yes,
you'd
please,
like.
move right on through that. Yes.
All right, so construction update. Had a very nice meeting today with Pullman High School. As you can tell, we were moving quickly and finishing the third wing. We're on schedule, a little bit ahead of schedule. We're finishing our fencing around the stadium. We're doing a lot of finish work throughout the building and out on the grounds. The nice weather's allowed us to take advantage of that. Finishing some fencing along the back as well. So we're making great progress during Thanksgiving week. We're planning on doing a lot of some fixes and enhancements that need to be made, and those can be done easier when the building's unoccupied. Some of them involve shutting down some water, fixing some pipes and that type of thing. So we'll have a lot of work occurring over Thanksgiving break here when the students and staff are gone to so we don't interrupt learning. So, but that'll be a very busy week here, so a lot of activity will be going on as far as construction, so. Kamiak Elementary, we signed a contract to start moving dirt as soon as possible. I haven't been home yet to see whether they started dirt. This morning when I left at 5:30, nothing had moved, but I'm hoping to see a nice big pile of earth when I get home tonight.
Beautiful day for moving dirt.
Were they?
No, I didn't see, I'm just saying it
Oh.
was a beautiful day.
It was a beautiful day, so I'm really hoping they got out today, so. And we're supposed to have some good weather, so I'm really counting on us starting to move some dirt. Also, in this very room for this, so far this week, and we'll continue to the end of the week, we have our EdSpec design team, value engineering team, poring over a lot of documents to do the value engineering for Kamiak. So, very serious group, very dedicated and focused on what they were doing. So they peeked in and they were very much on task and not really wanting to have any conversations. They were very focused. So making a lot of progress, and we're very excited about that. So.
Will they have a final report kind of meeting?
Yes, they will.
About things?
Yeah.
And that is available for people to come to?
I'm sure it will be. I'll find out the details, though.
Okay.
So.
I went to the last one, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
I mean, all these guys have their one thing that they look at and they know.
Well, they even separate themselves out.
Yeah.
One per table, and it's very structured and organized, but
It's
I'll
fascinating.
find out and we'll go along with it. Also, along with that, just a note, Joe is not here tonight. Joe has had some medical issues earlier this week and has been out and came in today for a little bit, and I'll be doing his part in the board presentation tonight, and I want to make sure he rests and takes care of himself, so
Okay.
that's the report.
Okay, very good. How about the yearbook ad sales? Who's doing that? Anybody? No? Okay.
Stay tuned, it's a continuing item.
Year-end report. Presenter Diane Hodge, our finance manager.
In color, I was most impressed.
It keeps you awake. Okay, so we finished our year-end for 2015-16 reporting. It was approved by ESD, and ESD submitted it to OSPI for their approval. Oops. Hold on. There we go. So this is just our year-end report that we're required to give. This is a 10-year history of our enrollment. So if you notice back in 2006-7 to current, or to this last year, we've increased 513 FTE over 10 years, and 159 of those FTE were last year alone. So it's obviously very significant. Our general fund beginning fund balance was $1.9 million, almost $2 million. Our revenues were $27 million in 15-16. Expenditures, $24.8 million. We had $975,000 transferred out. That was for capital project improvements and property. And then our ending fund balance that we ended with as of August 31st, 2015 was the $3.2 million. This is a two-year comparison between 14-15 and 15-16. They're pretty similar in the local tax. The major difference here is the state general apportionment, and that's just due to our increased FTE, and then we did receive a little bit more money for our students and our MSOCs, which are material supplies and operating costs that year. Our expenditures by program. The majority of our expenditures are, of course, basic ed at 54%. Our next highest is district-wide support at 19%, which makes up our custodians, maintenance, grounds, technology, district office support, and, of course, our utilities. And then next is our special education. Our expenditures by object, our biggest expenditure are certificated salaries.
with benefits, district-wide benefits being our second, and then classified salaries being our third biggest expenditure. Our fund balance composition, this is what makes up the 3.2 million fund balance. We have a non-spendable fund balance of food service inventory that we have to designate of $8,062. And then our restricted fund balance that we reserve for our debt service, our non-voted debt service payment of $115,000 every year. And then our unassigned fund balance is 1.6 million. And we also have the 6% minimum fund balance board policy that we keep almost 1.5 million in, and that's board policy. So basically, the only unrestricted amount we have is the 1.6 million. Our capital projects fund, let's get rid of this right here. The beginning fund balance was 19 million. Our revenues were 33 million, and the majority of that was the 23.5 million for the bond for Kamiak Elementary. Our expenditures go towards technology, the Pullman High School remodel, Kamiak Elementary, and then just preventative maintenance projects. Our ending fund balance was 24.2 million in our capital projects fund. Our debt service fund, which is what we service our non-voted debt and our voted debt, had an ending fund balance of 2.5 million. Our transportation vehicle fund ended with 425,000, and this is going to go down this month. We're actually in the process of purchasing a new bus this month. And our ASB ended with 243,000, and again, we get our revenues from club, athletics, and fundraisers, boosters, and of course, our expenditures can only go towards student activities. And this is our ASB ending fund balance by school. We're now required to post this to our district website, and each individual school by August 31st has to have this posted to their school website. So anyone can look up what their ending fund balance is. Any questions?
The high school allowed to carry over that, is that what they carried over?
Mm-hmm.
Are they allowed to carry over that?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I thought it had to be, well, good.
Yeah.
Or do they have plans, or they have a project?
You know, it's all student-led, and so they oversee that money. They're in charge of the spending. They're in charge of the revenues, the fundraisers. I mean, of course, it has to be approved by the district, but they oversee that money. It can only be spent on student activities.
And the boosters donate some too, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
Any further comments or questions for Diane?
I'll just make one more comment, speaking of fundraising and boosters and that sort of thing. Lakeland Middle School had the no-nonsense fundraiser going on. I think if you still wanted to donate, you certainly may. Today was supposed to be the last day, but they had not had much response. So, and it's just to donate rather than having to buy magazines like we used to do over years and years and years, and that sort of thing. You can just write a check to Lincoln, so you can call the school and find out more about how to do that. Sorry. Help boost up their ending fund balance.
Certainly. Thank you for that information.
Sorry.
No, that's good. Next item on the agenda is school performance metrics. Was that going to be you, Superintendent?
That will be.
Okay.
So you can click out of here. There we go. All right, thank you. Let's see if I can put enough copies for Diane. I need one to Shannon. 1, 2, 3, 4. Actually, I'm going to take one back. Sorry. Yes, yeah, I'm passing around a handout based on a conversation that we had in one of our work sessions about talking about standardizing some of our performance indicators for the district and the school. And so I've had an opportunity to meet with building principals, talk a little bit about different performance metrics we might be able to use. This is still just a draft. But as a district, we talked about on the first page kind of 4 areas that we were interested in. Academic achievement, obviously, the achievement gap, what I term school culture / parent engagement, and then college and career readiness, which is kind of the end goal for our students when they exit our system. And so taking a look at those would be kind of the 4 overarching goals that we might consider as district performance indicators as metrics. On the second page, it looked at possible elementary performance framework indicators and broke that down into 3 areas, which would be academic achievement, achievement gap, school culture / parent engagement, and then to the right would be some of the different specific tools that we would use as metrics, which could be reading and math proficiency rates, measurable annual progress, which is MAP, or the SBAC, which is our state assessment / interim assessment. We're also looking at now the state interim assessments pretty much now give us the same information as MAPs, and MAPs we pay for, where the interim assessment is free from the state, and so looking at transitioning possibly to that in grades where we have that option. And also looking at WAKIDS, which is now one of the performance indicators for our kindergarten students. The achievement gap, we could also utilize those same things, looking at different student groups identified. So that would be using the same metrics. And then school culture / parent engagement, these are just some of the brainstorm ideas with the principals, is parent engagement activities, parent conference attendance rates, student attendance rates, and I call it behavior engagement rates rather than discipline referrals. So, so behavior engagement would be when you have to engage with behavior, but a little different term that you would normally see, but throwing it out there. But those would be kind of the 4 things, and possibly all 4, or maybe a couple of those, depending on how many we want to select. We want to use at least some multiple measures, but not too many. So with the moving on to the secondary, we looked at all 4, and you see the college and career readiness because that's a secondary indicator, not necessarily one that we would utilize for elementary. Many of the same things for the academic achievement and the achievement gap. We could use the same metrics, which could be reading and math proficiency rates, MAP, the SBAC interim assessments, the dropout rate, and one thing that the state is actually looking at now, the state's looking at what they call 9th grade course failure rate. We talked about looking at 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th grade course failure rate, and looking at, we actually have started doing some data mining in those areas currently. Lincoln Middle School is looking at doing that data mining for 6th, 7th, and 8th. I know the high school has already started looking at that and have pulled that data for 9th grade and in preparation to take a look at that. So that would align with probably what we're going to have to be reporting to the state eventually anyway. So I wanted to bring that to your attention. It's also been proven to be one of the key indicators of student and success and college and career readiness. For student cultural parent engagement, the discussion evolved around student perception survey, parent engagement connectivity satisfaction survey, student attendance rates, behavior engagement rates. For the middle school, a possibility could be parent conference attendance rates. These are just brainstorm ideas, but there are some very good student perception surveys that are out there that are commercial or marketed, as well as parent engagement connectivity satisfaction rates surveys. Then for college and career readiness, looking at obviously the graduation rate, which we also have to, it's one of our indicators currently, post-school outcomes, which may be taking a look at a variety of where our students going, where are they as far as career readiness, careers, or to post-secondary education. Looking at our ACT data and SAT data, which we already received, and that's something that we easily can collect and report on. So the last page is just measuring success and just some base standard statements. how we would measure this progress and what could it include. So this is just to give you an update. It's still in draft, that's why it's printed on there, but I want to let you know that we are making progress working on that from our work study session, but I wanted to kind of give you a brief update of where we are currently in that process.
Is there a reason that the walk kids is crossed out and just on there and crossed out rather than just left off?
It's because as a academic achievement indicator, WAKIDS is not, it's a screener as to how kids did in preschool.
Oh,
Correct.
Okay, it provides us information, it doesn't provide us about our current practice, it provides us about the practice of early childhood providers.
Coming in.
So it can give us information related to the achievement gap, but it doesn't give us academic achievement information related to student progress in our system.
okay. But it was even in the secondary?
And that was just a typo that
Okay.
I probably cut and pasted.
All right.
So we're working on getting those, it's, still a draft.
Yeah.
And again, the important thing is that it's consistent year after year after year so we can track, right?
Correct, and that the goal obviously would be to decide on some of these, and those would be the metrics that we would use year after year, so we have something to measure. So I wanted to kind of give you an update, have you think about it.
I always hesitate on the state ones because they seem to change all the time.
And that's part of the, I think the evolution of state assessments. I know we'll have it at least for one more year. After that,
Yeah, but the whole point is to have something consistently year after year after year so we can actually compare apples to apples.
yeah, and there are some of those things, I think, with our perception surveys, I think with our interim assessments. I also think we're getting some very good preliminary information out of our course, grade level course failure rates, and those are something that are not dependent on assessment from a state assessment.
Thank you.
Has anything changed in the graduation rate data? It used to be we got dinged pretty hard because we're pretty much transient population in Pullman, and we weren't able to track those students that were leaving and going to other school districts, and we were getting dinged for non-graduation. I was wondering if anything has changed on that front.
We're still obviously having that conversation with the state, and I will say for our English language learners, we have a much better system where that information is, even if the students leave and go to another school district, they're able to separate those and take a look at how that might apply in effect. I think it's still something under construction, as they say, with the state, but.
Okay.
Just like Carl's shirt.
Okay, does that cover any further comments or questions concerning our
I guess
performance framework?
my one comment would be, a lot of this is data that we already have. We just maybe haven't used it for this purpose before. So I'd rather use data that we already have and do more with it than collect data that maybe we haven't collected in the past. So I don't know if we've formally, other than anecdotally, collected data on how many parents attend parent-teacher conferences. I don't necessarily want to start collecting if we haven't already, but.
Yeah, and that's something that we haven't necessarily, but I think that's something, and I agree, and one of the things I think we all agree is we don't need to create more work.
Right.
And we want to also use data that's readily accessible, that will take time to gather, and so I just wanted to kind of give you a full menu of kind of the topics, and then the next step would be to narrow these down to, we don't want to create extra work or cause extra work, but I agree, if we have it, let's use it if it really is good, valuable data. And Roberta's been doing some great work with the elementary. We'll be moving into the secondary, doing some data digs, and great conversations are occurring about what is currently available that we could be using to really maximize our efficiency and not create more work, or just create another assessment, or some more data is extra. We don't need extra, we've got enough going on, but we want to use some key things that make a difference.
Any further comments or questions?
So we'll continue to refine this, and we'll bring this back to you as we continue to narrow that down. But if you have questions or comments, please feel free to get a hold of either one of us, and we're going to continue that work with the building principals.
Okay.
Behavior, engagement rates, everybody behaves. Just the way they behave.
It's also positive behavior.
Yeah.
All right, thank you for that report. That's good to know. Now we'll move on to the next item on our agenda, which is the consent agenda. And the consent agenda is used to expedite business at our board meetings. The board approves the use of the consent agenda, which includes items considered to be routine in nature. Any item that appears on the consent agenda may be removed from the consent agenda by any single member of the board and voted on separately. The remaining items will be voted on by a single motion. Is there anything on the consent agenda this evening that any of the board members wish to remove? Okay, then I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I move the consent agenda be approved as presented.
A second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda as presented. I'll just run down the list real quick this evening. The consent agenda consists of the minutes of our last meeting, personnel report, new PH Club, professional and personnel service report, and expense warrants. So, any other comments, questions, discussions concerning that? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. That moves us to the action items for this evening. And our first action item is the 2017-18 academic calendar approval. So to present that, it's Dr. Maxwell.
Thank you. Yes, we last time we met, we had an opportunity to kind of look at several calendar options. It's always been our practice to finalize a calendar 2 years out. We're a little bit behind with that, so we're getting back into that cycle. So the first one is action item A, which is the 2017-18 academic calendar. There were two choices that were presented to you last time. The Pullman Education Association favored option A, which I have up on the screen for you. That consisted of a very similar calendar to this year, where it would be a full Thanksgiving, week off, your 2 weeks at December. Our professional learning days would be in August, before school started, October, January, March, and then we would have our traditional spring break, April 2nd through the 6th, with an ending date of June 15th. That would be a Friday.
When did the PEA opt for option A? Was that just recently? Or?
I want to say 2 weeks ago. It was before our board meeting, our last board meeting.
Oh, I'm just confused why they wanted the full Thanksgiving next year and then go to the half Thanksgiving the year.
I believe that was to provide a year opportunity for people to plan.
Oh, okay. Okay, just wondering.
No, it's a good question. I can pull up the other if you'd like. Oops. And just for your knowledge, calendar.
Now that one did have the half, or the.
Yeah, I believe it did. For some reason, it's not. Oh, there it is. Sorry. So option B for the 2017-18 school year had the shorter Thanksgiving break, and that was not selected as a popular one for the next year.
Well, in that case, I would move that we approve option A of the 2017-18 academic calendar for next year.
I'll second that.
All right, concerning the 2017-18 academic calendar year, it's been moved and seconded. The board approved the 2017-18 academic calendar, option A, as presented. Any further comments, questions, or discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor of approving option A, that's 2017-18 calendar, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. And we will go to action item B, which is the 2018-19 academic calendar. Dr. Maxwell?
Yes, thank you. So, action item B, which is a 2018-2019 academic calendar. Background summary indicates that there were three options, A, B, and C. And the Pullman Education Association voted to choose calendar option C. I will pull that up for you. Just a second here. Here you are. This is option C for the 2018-2019. Start of school, very similar. As you know, on all the calendars, this first day of school would be the last Wednesday in August. You can see that our professional learning days are spread out throughout the year, October, January, and March. This one has 3 days off for the Thanksgiving holiday. It also has 3 full weeks in December, and then we get a 2-week winter break. And then the difference here is that there is what they call a midwinter break, which would be February 15th through the 19th. February 18th is President's Day, so there would not be school there. The advantage of option C is the midwinter break could be used as snow makeup days if needed. And spring break would stay the same in all the calendars. This would give us an ending date of Friday, June 14th. So the two biggest changes from the others would be the shortened Thanksgiving, and those days would shift it down into February for what they would call midwinter. Again, provides the option of some snow makeup days. Traditionally, what we've used for snow makeup days has been the last March professional learning day, and then we start adding on days to the end of the year.
Any comments or questions?
On January 18th Professional Development Day, they really approved that day as a day for, it seems to me, usually when it's a 3-day weekend, there's a lot of the teachers take that optional for their, whatever, personal day or what thing, on the Friday before. Because you get a lot of emails from Davey saying.
There is a limit on how many percentage I can take that
Correct.
day.
But to me, how many of the teachers are going to be taking this 18th as a personal day, so they're not partaking of the professional development day?
That's a good question. And, I'm not, it'd be hard for me to speculate if people would not attend. We've had excellent attendance at our learning improvement days, even when they were moved into the summer. So remember, for those days, they do not get paid unless they attend a professional learning day. For
But if
this,
they take it as a personal day, don't they still get paid?
They can't.
they cannot take that as a personal day. That's a separate day. So they can't take that and,
So everybody has to be there that day? then?
Or not get paid.
or not be paid.
Okay.
And during the past summer, when we had to move that because of snow, we only had 2 teachers that did not attend. Both of those teachers had already made travel arrangements and were unable to change those because of the cost of changing it. So out of all of our teachers, 2 and actually had legitimate reasons. So that's always a concern, but at least right now, we have very high attendance at those professional learning days.
I was just surprised that they would say not do it, move it to the 11th.
Well, actually, and I would say at first, we did have it on the 11th. We talked in depth about that. The problem with having on the 11th was, would we be prepared to offer the professional development sessions? Because if you notice, you have that winter break, and then you'd only have 4 days to finish prepping, and it's really, really hard to do quality professional development. Even though we prep a lot of it before break, December, as you know, is a very busy. If I have an evening that I don't have to be somewhere, I'll be shocked. But between now and break, so we talked a lot about that, because originally we did have it on the 11th, but we also felt that we would probably be really struggling to get that pulled off in 4 days. And so that's why we opted to move it back to the 18th.
I was just surprised to see it as well, because
Yeah, and then we thought about moving it back, but then then you have a 3-day week in the middle of the week.
yeah.
So we struggled a lot with where to move that day, and we tried several different Fridays or Mondays, but as you can tell, that's an interesting time of the year in the calendar, so
Okay.
we struggled with that as well.
Any further
Thank you.
comments, discussion?
No, that's a great question, I should have brought that up.
Okay. It's a pleasure of the board.
All right, fine.
I move we approve option C for the calendar year 2018-19.
Second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded that the board approve the 2018-19 academic calendar option C as presented. Any further comments, questions, or discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor of approving the 2018-19 academic calendar option C, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carried unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that concludes our action items for this evening, but we do have some discussion items. The first discussion item, A, is a rental lease of school district facilities. Dr. Maxwell.
Whoops, just a second here, if I can pull this up. Thank you, and again, Joe apologizes for not being here tonight, but I think 2 of our board members have an opportunity to hear some of this information earlier, and what we really wanted to work on was with opening of the theater and taking a look at the use of our facilities across the district. I was amazed. I just picked one school, and that was Lincoln Middle School, and looked at how many people use our gyms, our commons area, our fields, and literally it took up a complete page of, I believe I counted 18 or 19 different organizations, and I looked at a calendar from August to March. Almost every evening until almost 10 p.m. that building is being utilized, or the outside grounds, as well as weekends. So we took a look at our current rental and lease agreements, and we determined they were, number one, they were outdated, and we probably really needed to take a look at restructuring that. As part of that, what we're bringing tonight to you is just the fee portion, which will be incorporated into our policy and procedure, which we're working on right now. So what we did a lot of research is taking a look at updating our fee schedule to reflect current expenses. We have not reviewed that since March 10th, 2010. It is 2016, so it's been a while. Utilities have not gotten cheaper, as far as I know, and maintenance continues to rise. So we really took a look at looking at some other schools, and I believe that information is here. So we compared several districts, looking at primarily the auditorium fee. We looked at Clarkston, Fife, Marysville, North Kitsap, Wenatchee, Linden, Steilacoom, and Spokane. The information's in there, what the fee costs. There's a technology fee. You probably wouldn't have seen that 6 years ago or 10 years ago, but we do have quite an expensive and complex soundboard as part of the theater, which someone that's not familiar with and trained in soundboards would probably have a difficult time operating that. We also want to make sure that we treat that equipment with care so that it lasts. So you'll see that almost all these have a tech fee included, and of course a custodial fee for cleanup. And so current use fee for the auditorium is $20 an hour, custodian is $24, and piano is $5 an hour. It kind of gives you an idea of what other districts are currently charging. Obviously, you don't see any $20 an hour custodians as an example on there, or rental for an auditorium. So I'm going to move up, looking at base rental proposal for you to consider. So the base rental, Tier 1 would be PHS, Pullman School District use would be free pending availability. Tier 2 would be nonprofit organizations, which would be $60 an hour, 2-hour minimum rental. Tier 3 would be other uses, which would be $100 an hour, a 2-hour minimum rental. This would be for taking a look at outside groups that may be charging a fee, maybe for a gathering or something of that nature. Base rental would provide access to stage lighting, sound control, which is preset curtains, wireless microphone stand, conductor stand, chairs, music stands, access to the dressing room. So that's what we would include in a basic rental fee. Additional costs we felt that were reasonable would be custodian at $33 an hour, sound and lighting tech, so if they needed to run the soundboard and have more in-depth sound, light type, that they would have to use a sound tech. Light programming also, we can do light programming, but that would be someone to run the light programming. Grand piano use, we thought $5 is kind of low when you consider how much it costs to tune a grand. And so we thought $15 an hour wouldn't be, or per event, excuse me, wouldn't be too outrageous. We currently charge $5. Projector would be $30 an hour, and then green room for band or choir room would be $25 an hour.
Another thing you might want to consider is, I know when we were originally talking about this room as a board and community room, there was talk about using this for receptions. So if, like, the symphony wanted to have an intermission, cookies and punch or something, the theory was that they could use this room for that. So that might be something you want to think about.
That's a good point.
And are these costs, they will cover the cost of the employees?
Yes.
The whole cost, like all the taxes and everything else we have to pay?
Yes. Yeah, I had to double check with Diane, but she's giving me the nod, so.
It's not just, the $30 an hour, because you've got to add another.
Well, that would include
Yeah.
benefits and,
Yeah.
What's it called, retirement costs, that type of thing. So these are more updated. I mean, we're currently 6 years behind what to charge at, but again, you can compare that to the other districts that we looked at, where I think we're pretty reasonable and not too far out on the edge, and we've had some really good discussion, which has been helpful, and I didn't even think of this room as, or know some of the previous conversation of what this might be used for, so I really appreciate that, and that's something that I
Yeah,
can.
that's a really good point.
And then my other question, which just went away in my, or what keep brain, was, with the basic fee, is that a school district employee is here at all times, that it's being used by another entity?
The concept is, yes, for example, for a custodian, You know, if someone's here, obviously we want it, but if custodians are already here in the building, then we do have an employee here.
Okay.
So-
But you do require an employee to be?
Yeah, like if someone came in on a Saturday, then we need to have, somebody's got to open up, somebody's got to lock up.
Yeah.
So we would have an employee there.
Okay. And is that factored into just the basic fee, or?
That's the custodial fee.
That's the custodial
The
fee.
custodian is always, needs to be present when it's rented on the weekend.
So you
On the-
wouldn't charge this custodial fee
I do not believe we would charge that since they're here already.
like at this time?
Unless,
Right.
yeah.
That was my
Because they're
understanding.
already here.
Yeah.
So we wouldn't charge for that. But unless it was something where, you know, they were going to be in a particular room and having something that would need some extra cleaning, then that would be something we would have to take a look at. But
Okay,
typically, if they're already here, we would not charge them for that custodian.
okay.
But on a weekend, we would because, or if it was after hours that they were scheduled to be here, we would charge a
So
custodian.
that needs to be probably established in the
Well, we could,
agreement?
we'll probably have to clarify that in this.
Okay.
I think it is in the policy.
I think it is in the policy and
I think it is
procedure,
too,
but
We're just not viewing the whole policy right now. The idea was, since this affects the public,
Yeah,
it needed to be discussed by the board because these are the rates we would be charging the public. But the actual policy language, I think, does say
yeah.
when the custodian hours are, and, you know, you wouldn't have to pay for the custodian during those times because custodian would already be here.
Perfect.
and really, and thank you, Allison, for bringing that up, because this is just, we're talking the fee. We're going through the whole policy and procedure, which
Yeah.
really needs to be improved, because I didn't know we offered sterling silver as an example. In our cup, it's quite a read.
Yeah.
So we're working through that, but we just wanted to address the fees with you tonight because we felt that's something you need to approve, and then that would be incorporated in the procedure and the policy, which we'll bring back to you at another time, because we're still working through that, because it really needs to be overhauled since
What
it's,
is the policy?
The number?
oh, the number?
sorry, never
I should know it off the top of my head. Let's see if I have, I brought that with me.
Never mind, it's fine. I can look it up just as well as you can.
Yeah, I'm sorry I don't have that in front of me.
Just taking the lazy way out.
We can email it to you, Susan.
That's all right.
Any further comments, questions?
Well, just one comment, that old policies are quite a read. Bob, I can suggest some novels or some nonfiction for you.
Good, I need it, because
Might
I haven't
also enjoy
read
it.
anything other than policy lately, so.
Any further comments or questions? All right, well, that will come back to us at a future date. That brings us to discussion item B, which is policy 4218, language access plan. Dr. Maxwell?
Yes, since it's the beginning, well, kind of the beginning of the school year, but as you know, we're tending to enter what I call the policy season. And so we're receiving quite a few and looking through. These are the ones I are bringing forward tonight are priority policies from WASDA. Policy 4218 is the language access plan, and it's quite comprehensive, but really to summarize this, it is new rules and regulations that have been in place, but primarily guarantee access to folks that need help with understanding policies, procedures, translations. It's quite extensive, but again, a lot of this, I've gone through it with a fine-tooth comb, and almost every word except for the yellow, which I included, is all law, so there's really not a lot that you can change. Checked with some other districts as well, and it's the same thing, not one word was changed other than I added the Pullman School District Board of Directors. And believe in here, there's somewhere where it talks about 5%. Yes, sorry. The district will provide written translation of vital documents of each limited proficient group that is at least 5%. We do not have any group that is at 5%. I did my homework and research on that just to double check. And our highest is 3.08%, which is Arabic. So, and they have, these are all the different languages spoken in our district with the percentage of students that make up that, but none hit the 5% mark in this policy, in case you wanted to know that. Yes?
How difficult is it to translate these documents now? Do they have computer programs that'll basically do it?
We use, OSPI is contracted with 3 different interpretation services, which are phone-in services. We use those for meetings typically. They have been able to negotiate a better rate as a collective state than you could as a district, which I really appreciate because it can be very, very expensive. We use some word translation programs. We use some different apps. OSPI has recently, a lot of our vital forms and information we need to get out, a lot of those are, OSPI is taking care of the translation of those and provides those on their website. We just insert our district heading and information. So it's getting much better than it used to be, but it's not always easy because some of our languages are very difficult to translate, or there may not be a translation that equals what the English language is. So we also tap into other resources as far as folks up at WSU that may be able to help, or some of our own staff. But also the computer translation programs are getting better. They're not 100% necessarily, and sometimes we have to check those with experts in the field.
Sure.
And with a lot of times our parents will bring that to our attention, and we can go back and make some of the corrections. But it is time consuming, it's very costly in some cases, but this is what we're required to do, and we continue to improve in that. I think it was last year we actually had our enrollment packet translated into Arabic, because that's our number one language, so it made sense that we probably should have an enrollment packet
Right.
to address that group. The next, if you're interested, the next is Chinese, unspecified, because we also have Chinese Mandarin and Chinese Cantonese, so, which are, Mandarin is 0.38% and Cantonese is 0.03% of our population.
On the section on staff guidance, do you see any implications for additional training or guidance that you would?
Yeah, and we've actually had some guidance and some training. Number one was with our secretaries, especially last year,
That's
because
what I
they're
was
typically
wondering,
the first person that experiences this. We've looked at some apps, translation apps, that are actually fairly cheap and well done, and so that's been something that we've been encouraging them to use, because that way you can have at least a two-way conversation, both in English and almost every language listed on here it can be found on an app. Not all, but most. So but that's what I usually when I have to go to a meeting with a parent. If that's an issue, I typically download the app on my phone and use that to help translate. And so they're very helpful.
So the secretaries are all kind of trained in?
We're working on it.
Okay.
A lot of times they'll call Roberta's office and
Oh,
or
Roberta
Lana,
can handle
so.
it.
But that's one of the things we talked about.
She doesn't really have enough to do, I've noticed.
No, we don't have enough to do, so. But we are encouraging that they use those apps. And some of them are, actually, some of the apps are free and actually are very good.
Yeah.
So, but most of the apps are with like $4.99, and frankly, that's a cheap
Yeah.
way to have that. So we've actually talked about even putting those on tablets and having those available in the office so that
Oh,
if a parent
that'd be
came in,
great.
we could hand them the tablet, the secretary would have it. And they could share that tablet and communicate back and forth.
Right.
That'd be really,
So
really
that's-
welcoming.
That's what
Yeah.
we're looking for. We're trying to find a nice tablet that we could use with that, so. So that's our next, one of the next steps we'll take a look. But this is a priority one, and there's not much leeway other than we need to work on our guidance. And actually, our staff has had a lot of practice with international students, so that's been very helpful. And
Especially Franklin.
yes, Franklin is,
Well, all of the elementaries.
yeah. So we have quite a variety of languages, so. I can pass that down if you're interested in looking.
Okay. Any further comments or questions concerning our language access plan and policy? All right. If there's not any, that will come back to us at our next meeting for action. Which brings us to item C under discussion item list, which is policy 4217, effective communication. Once again, Dr. Maxwell.
Again, this is one of the latest in the round, is 4217. This is a priority policy by WASDA. We have not yet adopted this policy. And let me get to the policy here for you. Again, this one again talks about effective communication, and it follows a similar pattern where district-sponsored programs, activities, and services will be accessible to individuals with disabilities. So this really relates to hearing, vision, and/or speech disabilities. So the basic of this one is that parents, primarily, or community members with a disability need to have the same or similar access as someone without a disability. I believe this actually came out of a case with the Seattle School District. And so in that case, I believe it was a parent who was blind and trying to access their website, actually. And so we now have to make sure that we take steps to, as people request access, we first must listen to what their priority access tool would be, and then consider if we can do that, or do we have something that would be a similar auxiliary aid or services to accomplish that same communication method. And so there's a list of auxiliary aids and services such as note takers, real-time computer aided transcriptions, call cart, exchange of written notes, telephone, a handset, amplifiers. It goes on and on. But the basis is really is that we have to ensure that, one, they have access to communication that is equal to or similar to anyone else without a disability. And so primarily this would be, right now we do have some students and parents that are hard of hearing, and so we actually contract with an interpreter as needed and has requested to help interpret if needed, and that's worked out very well, and so that's a contract that we have annually with that particular group of students and parents. But it could be a vision loss or a vision disability. So again, we are required to provide access, and so this policy is, again, word for word out of the WASDA policy and the law.
The only thing is you need to somewhere in there make it start like our Shannon figured out. Pullman School District Board of Directors.
Yeah, and I actually, Shannon and I were working kind of on this together, and that's one of the things I didn't have time to insert, but I did want to bring it to your attention because it is a priority, and I'm trying to get caught up on our priority policies and
At least
procedures.
those, yeah.
But it can just say Pullman School in front of the word district in the first line, and that
Yeah.
would work.
You got a note on that, Shannon? Okay, thank you. Again, it's a comprehensive policy, and the procedure is, if I recall correctly, equally as long, if not longer. A lot of it's very repetitive, but
That's important stuff.
it's important, and it's actually pretty darn thorough when I look through it, and spent a lot of time going line by line, and then some of these I was familiar with, others I wanted to make sure I understood what they were, so I had to look them up, and so I wanted to bring that to your attention.
I think it's important to have it all spelled out specifically.
Yeah, and like I said, I will bring the procedure, I just haven't had time to go through that particular procedure yet, so.
It is interesting to think about, because it's fine, if you plan for it, but as they're mentioning it here, if there's an emergency alert or a school closure or something, we have to have a plan in
Yeah.
place, so.
And that's the one that worries me the most,
Yeah.
especially with, not only with disabilities, but even our second language learner parents. And typically, we're lucky in this area because usually one of the parents speak, but what happens if one's at work and one's not, and they don't speak English, and how do we communicate that information? And I don't have a great plan on that yet, but that's something that we definitely need to take a look at and see what we can come up with.
Any further comments or questions regarding this policy? Okay, if not, this will come back to us at our next meeting as an action item. And that concludes our discussion items this evening. There are some informational items on our agenda which are for citizens and the board to peruse through. They may be brought back at a future meeting. And that brings us to, we're going to have a closed session this evening for update on property. And how long do you think it will last?
15, 20 minutes.
Okay, probably last 20 minutes, and at the end of the meeting of that closed session, no action will be taken. That meeting will be adjourned. So if there are no objections, we will recess our meeting until the room can be cleared, and everybody's welcome to come forward and ask questions or if they'd like to. So this meeting is now in recess.